Hi, BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I just remembered that I haven't done a July wrap-up. And I figured probably better do it now because next week my sister surprises them and she says she's coming to visit. So, and I'm probably gonna film in August. I don't know if I'm going to film in August, TBR or not, because I've been trying. I think what works best for me is sometimes not when I plan too far in advance, when I just, pick once I finish a book, pick my next book. But I don't know, I might still do one, I always do that. I always, pick a book and then, come up with my TBR, and I end up putting too many books on there and I end up only getting to a handful of them. So this has been one of my shorter months of reading, but that's because there were some books I was trying to finish. There was another book I was trying to finish, just as in June. I was also trying to, I think it was June. I started doing the document, a TBR document on Word again, so I'm looking at that right now. And, yeah, last month, back in June, I was also trying to finish a book, so. So far, February this year has been my longest month, but that's also, I think, because I read a couple of short stories and a handful of short stories, and then I also read an ebook as well in February, so that might have helped. And then there were two books I reread that and I feel like after when you reread a book, sometimes you can potentially, unless it's just a tome size book, if it's not a tome and it's less than 500 pages and you've already read, I feel like you can potentially get through a little bit quicker, but that could just be me. Okay, so let's talk about what I read in July. So the book I was working on finishing was Middlemarch by George Eliot. This is basically about the town of Middlemarch in the countryside of England. It's about the lives of the people that live in this town, particularly Dorothea and her sister. I forget what the sister's name is. What's the sister's name? Does it? Dorothea Brooke and her sister, who doesn't say her name on the back of this. And how she marries Edward Casaubon, and how that marriage does not go very well. In fact, none of the marriages really go all that well. Mary Garth and who is she? Mary Garth and her relationship with Fred Vincy, and Fred's sister Rosamond and her marriage to Dr. Lydgate. And how that also does not go well. In fact, there's a resentment between the two of them. That one actually starts out really well. It starts out better than Casaubon and Dorothea's relationship. And then and then, her sister's marriage to the guy that wanted to marry Dorothea. I can't remember his name. I used to be able to remember his name, but now I can't remember it. And also we get a little love triangle where Casaubon's, I don't know if he's his nephew or cousin, her cousin meets Dorothea and falls in love with her, and she with him in the process. And it's about their lives, it's about marriage, and this is also going on during a time when the reform bill was trying to be passed. So there's a lot of political discussions in the story, as well as relationship discussion, as marriage, and the day-to-day life of these people. And which I really like that. I like how there's a little bit of political intrigue in the story, about the reform bill and the characters' thoughts on this reform bill and what does it mean, and if it's going to be passed or not. And Dorothea is such a amazing main character. Amazing main character. She's so strong and so sure of herself, but then she's also very naive. And she just assumes that she knows she assumes that she knows what's best for herself, and she's to marry this guy, Casaubon, who's much older than her, like 10 or 20 years older than her, because, they are on equal footing, and he's, a man of God, and just thinks it would be perfect, a match made in heaven, and then it turns out not so great, because he ends up being kind of a douchebag to her, and you almost pity the guy a couple times, though. I definitely almost felt sorry for him, but I still didn't like him, and he was very condescending towards her. It makes her, and she submits to him, and you want her to get out of that marriage and out of that situation, but she's not going to ever divorce him, and then he gets the last laugh later on in the story. He gets his revenge. He gets the last laugh in the story. Also, probably and Mary and Fred Vincy probably have the best marriage, which is not saying a lot, because even then there were times when I felt like Mary Garth was kind of manipulating him. But I think at the same time, she's not different than a lot of women who are going to fight for what they want, and will want certain things in life, especially during this time period. You can't entirely blame her for wanting him to, go up in life and not just settle. And it's it's a lot of complicated relationships, and I don't even know which is the worst relationship. They're Casaubon and Dorothy's relationship, or the marriage between Lydgate and Rosamund, because both are pretty dysfunctional. I mean, I would say that Lydgate and Rosamund marriage is the ugliest, because just the way they are with each other, the resentment that they had, feelings they have for each other, and just and that was so beautiful and everything. They were young and in love and caught up in their passion, and then just realized too late, because they run into a lot of financial trouble. And feel so bad for them at the same time, though. For me personally, I still felt bad for both of them. At the same time, I was also annoyed by both of them, especially her, because she came off as a spoiled little brat, and you kind of understand why her parents were against the marriage in the first place. Because, you want love to conquer all. You want that to be, the only reason people get married, and that, and that you don't want people to let their differences in society and class get in the way of people being together. But particularly in this time period, it can't be helped. Now, of course, in a Jane Austen novel, for instance, she makes it more romantic and beautiful, and the movie Becoming Jane, I don't know how accurate that is, but you kind of understand why she would rather make up an ideal love story than be realistic. And I imagine this comes off as probably more realistic when it comes to marriages, that it's not always going to be beautiful and wonderful and romantic. And Jane Austen doesn't, her books, end after the couple gets married. They end with marriages. And, she gives you a brief epilogue of where the characters are in their marriage. She kind of hints at what's going on, how things are. And sometimes some of them end on, a bit of a tiny cliffhanger where it's they don't necessarily with the end, and they all lived happily ever after, But the main characters get what they want. They get to be with who they want to be with. So you can just imagine they probably that all she needs to do is and they lived happily ever after. Well, this one, we don't end with marriages. The characters all have already gotten married. Well, except for Fred and Mary. But other than that, they're already married halfway through the story. So it's more about life and life after marriage and what they're gonna, how they deal with when the honeymoon's over. It's almost kind of tragic, but it's also so fascinating to read. It's, I feel like this is like reality TV of back then, But yeah, this is really good. I think I gave it 5 stars. If like I said, I still rate books on Storycraft, but that's because it allows for half stars. But I just don't like leaving it blank. Okay, so that one was more of I finished it this month rather than I read a lot of it this month, but not the whole thing this month. Okay, so next is I read a sci-fi. Let me switch these. Next, I read a sci-fi. I finally read Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. I think this is more YA. This is one of his YA works. And this was really fun. I can, basically about a girl named Spencer, and she lives on a planet where, people of Earth had to come to this planet and live here, and they have been invaded. They have an enemy called the Crow, and I'm so glad I remember that. And so they have pilots, people who fly spaceships who fire at the Crow. So it's a big deal to be a pilot. And her dad was one of these pilots. But then for some reason something happened a long time ago, and when she was a girl, when her dad had turned and fled, which is considered cowardly. So being a coward, being afraid, and not fighting back, and not being brave and fighting anyway, it's a big deal. It's a crime if you're a coward. So ever since Spencer was a little kid, after that incident, she has been always tough and, can handle herself, has all these trust issues, and just doesn't, and so, and she's a hothead. She's a bit of a hothead. And she's been known as the daughter of a coward, and people constantly, give her a hard time about that. And she wants to go more than anything to be a pilot like her dad, and wants to prove that her, to destroy the reputation that her family has developed because of her dad's actions. And of course she's conflicted because she loves her dad more than anything, wants to be like him, but she's also angry at him for what he did to receive this label of coward and how it affects her family. And, she is told that she will not get into pilot school because of that, because she's the daughter of a coward. And somehow, though, her dad's old pilot mate, I can't remember what, his second, or whatever, I can't remember the term that they use, but he meets her when she's taking the test, and he decides to let her in because he sees her answers for the test and sees that she is just like her dad, has not the cowardness but the skills. She has the same skills as her dad and the same potential, so he takes her on. Unfortunately, though, she can't stay at the school because it's kind of a boarding school type situation. She can't stay there. And it's all about her going to the school, but, at the same time, trying to destroy the reputation that her father has developed, and being a coward, and her experiences at this academy, and realize that there's might be more to her dad, what happened to her dad, than she has been led to believe, and that, maybe there's a possibility that her dad is not a coward, and that someone had made it so that he had this reputation of being a coward. And first, I can understand why Spencer would get irritating as a main character. She is very frustrating. Now, if you can relate to her, probably like Murphy Napier, for instance, she was saying that's how she was as a kid. And then you might like Spencer a lot more, and might connect with her a lot more if you're someone like her. Also, the whole the pilot school and everything, I don't know why, but I still, even if it's a school where, it takes place in something that I know a profession has to do with a career or a profession or whatever, or a subject matter. I would never be interested. Like, I would never go to pilot school. First I couldn't, I would suck at it most likely. But I still find it so interesting to read about and so entertaining just seeing them learn and getting, and all the experiences and all the learning that they do is just really fun to read about or watch. And I also like all the individual people all the different characters that her peers that we meet and hang out with throughout the story. There's like this kid who, he's from one of the let's just say upper class type people, and he's automatically gonna get in and everything, and she's so annoyed by him and finds him so arrogant, and he just kind of come off that way in the beginning, and so she calls him, what she called him. She gave him some let me see if I can find it. I can't remember what she called him. Some really insulting, really funny name. Where is it? I wish I could. Oh, I should have saved it, but I didn't think about it. Where is it? I'm trying to think. I can't find it, but where is it? They all have really funny names. This one girl called herself Hurl because she got sick during one of the simulations where they were practicing. Where is it? I can't think of where it is. I can't find it. Well, anyway, I don't remember what it was, but it was a funny name, kind of, and making fun of him, and he ends up being stuck with it, basically. He does not like it, and he tries to be like, no, that's not my name, that's not gonna be my code name, but it kind of sticks. I wish I could remember what it was. It's like something in face, I want to say, ugly face or stink face or something like that. It was kind of funny. And dang it, it's gonna, after I'm done filming, I'm gonna remember, I guarantee you. And just it's really fun. It's really cool, and I do want to continue. But what I've decided to do is just this book went into the donation pile, and because I liked it, but it's one of these things where I gotta draw the line in books that I want to keep and books that I want to unhaul, and unhaul doesn't always mean I don't like the book. It's just it will be. I can get the book on audiobook. We have the Libby app, and then there's the I have two. I have not Audible, but it's another audiobook thing that came with my iPhone. That I automatically had the app, so I could listen to my. So I had access to listening to my books that way, and so what I'm probably going to do is do that. Now, I don't know if maybe there's not an audiobook that's come out yet for this trilogy or not. The second book. But I remember when I looked on Libby, I couldn't find it. They only had the ebook. So I don't know if it's just because my Libby app doesn't have it, or it's not it hasn't come to audiobook yet. It hasn't been put on audiobook yet. I don't know, but I don't want to read. I don't have anything against ebooks, and I read Cinderella's Dead back in February on ebook, but I would rather listen to it on audiobook, especially because it's a sci-fi thing, with all the cool effects and stuff, and I hear his books have he has these two audiobook narrators for his books. So that should kind of help, because sometimes when I listen to audiobook and it's only one narrator, it's kind of weird hearing someone playing, a guy playing the girl parts or a girl playing the guy parts. But yeah, this was really fun. I want to keep going. I would rather just listen to it on audiobook. Okay, so next, I finally finished. There's another book I just finally finished this month. I didn't necessarily read all of it this month, but I finished it. And that is The Odyssey by Homer. I finally finished this, and I just love this book. I had this book was so much fun, and I was apprehensive about it because when I first decided to give it a shot, because it's epic poetry, and yeah, I had read Beowulf and in The Green Knight, but I read that in the British Lit class, so I had, we had sessions where we talked about both poems. So I wasn't sure how it would go, but I ended up really enjoying this. And this particular edition looks like a regular novel. But it's basically, if you're familiar, it's basically the story after the Trojan War and the Iliad. So you probably should read the Iliad first, but I don't think it will, hurt you if you don't read the Iliad first. And, if you want to have some context and you don't want to read the epic poem, the Iliad, then watch the movie Troy. Because it covers basically the same thing. I mean, it probably makes it more cinematically interesting. Although I'm pretty sure the poem itself is probably going to be really interesting and entertaining. But, there's a difference between, what's in an original of a book versus what they put in a movie, how they do a movie. But it's basically the same story as the Iliad, I think. And so this is after, where Odysseus, who's one of the soldiers for the Trojans, I think, and the war had been going on for 10 years, and finally he is able to go home. But along the way, he used to travel by sea, and so along the way he runs into a lot of detours and stops at a lot of places and stays on some islands for a period of time and loses a lot of his men, because the gods are constantly following him, and he's running into all these sea monsters, and these women are trapping him on their islands and stuff and trying to seduce him. Women do not necessarily look that great in this story. And which is why I like authors like Madeline Miller, who take the female characters from these stories and give us their perspective. And we begin to understand them and see them in this more positive light, or sympathetic light. Poseidon's got it in for him, I think, and, particularly because he blinded his son, the Cyclops, and humiliated him, essentially, and, we have the whole Circe turning some of his men into pigs and keeping him on the island for a whole year as her lover, her bedfellow. And it's a fun adventure, it is an older book, it is an ancient classic, so there are things about it that are probably come off as a little bit sexist, and, come off as a little dated today, but, definitely don't, but I still think this is worth checking out, because it's fun, and it's kind of one of the early stories that talks about, and that's about adventures and going on this quest, and trying to get home, and it's actually kind of funny, it might not have been meant to be funny, but there are some funny aspects, and like I said in my review, Odysseus is a bit of a little shit, in my opinion. He's dumb at times, but it's so entertaining and so much fun, and oh my god, though, I could not stand the suitors who were trying to seduce his wife Penelope, and being all like, oh, he's probably dead, so we're gonna go home, and it's so, that mentality of, oh, your husband's dead, you need a new one, so I'm gonna fight for you, and assuming that she's, gonna be all hunky-dory and everything, and all okay, I'm ready, I want you, or you, and it's she hasn't seen her husband in years, he's she thinks he's dead, she's grieving, and everyone's pressuring her to pick a new guy, and I will never understand that, but at the same time, it's also very entertaining, and, I'm definitely glad I had a good time with this one. And then I finally continued with Strange the Dreamer by Lady Taylor, and this again was so good and so fun and so beautiful, and it's basically about this junior librarian, Laszlo Strange, and he is the only one who remembers this infamous city that something happened a long time ago where the name of the city, it was erased. People didn't remember the city and they just call it Weep. They vaguely recall it, but Laszlo, for some reason, feels connected to it and remembers it, so he becomes obsessed with it. Now, he still doesn't remember the name, but he knows it was there, and it's not just a fairy tale to him. And one day, this delegation from Weep shows up, wanting to, they are taking one last ditch effort to help save the city, and they show up in his town where he lives, and he finally is able to, put himself out there and go along for the ride, and which leads him to this magical adventure where he falls in love for the first time, and which that's our other main character. What is her name? I forgot her name. Let me see if okay, it doesn't say her name, but she is known as the Muse of Nightmares, and she has this ability to control your dreams and become part of your dreams through these moths. That's this. And he meets her, and they fall in love in his dreams, literally. And it's so beautiful and so poetic, and just Laini Taylor's writing is so amazing. I definitely get what people love her writing. You just want to get lost in it. Now I don't know if I'm gonna, check out her other trilogy or not. I might one day. I don't know. Maybe I'll look for the library at some point. But it was just such a great story, and it felt very fairy tale-esque. And I wanted to go to this city. I wanted to go to this place where they were. Just the way they described it, and oh my god, the antagonist in the story is so scary, and she looks like a little girl, but she's not. And we don't know why that is. We don't even get it explained in this story why she is why she is physically still a little girl. And she had good motivations, and you understand her, but she's so sinister, and just it almost like sinister and evil in a way, and but you also understand why she feels the way she feels, and she's almost beyond humanity, but you see glimpses of it in the book. But she's downright manipulative too, and scary, but you're just so fascinated by her. But yeah, this is good, and I do have Muse of Nightmares. I didn't buy the book, but I do have it on an audiobook. I just haven't, because I'm listening to The Count of Monte Cristo on audiobook. And then last but not least is Howard's End by E.M. Forster. So I've been wanting to check out this author for a while. I've heard a lot about him as an author, and he's really good, and I just decided to pick it up and finally decided to read it, and it wasn't that long, so I figured I could get through it quickly, and it reads quickly as well. This kind of focuses on two families, well, three technically. The Shegels, for some reason, this always sounds like I can say it in my head, but then when I try to actually say it out loud, I can't do it. And the Wilcoxes, and they're kind of on opposite sides. Like the Shegels are the aristocrats types. They are into art and literature, You have the Wilcoxes, who are very practical and pragmatic and all about being a self-made man, and and these families kind of become intertwined with each other, and become linked together with the help of, and in between those two families is the Bast, this couple, this married couple, and they have a connection particularly to the Wilcoxes, and that brings these three people, these three families, their lives intersect with each other. And then you have the oldest of the Shingles, the daughter. She ends up marrying the patriarch of the family, Henry, after his wife, who she became friends with, passed away. And he becomes fascinated and intrigued with her and falls in love with her, and she with him. But they have a very complicated relationship because of their differences in their ways of thinking. And they're very combative of each other, and she struggles with being a good wife, but also being loyal to her true nature, to who she is as a woman. But also, like I said, being a good, loyal wife to her husband and submitting to him, because, of course, there's, they still kind of lean towards women being more passive and submitting completely to their husbands, while today women are not so willing to do that. It's because it should be an equal partnership when you get married. But back then, that was kind of on shaky ground. And it's just so fascinating, almost tragic in a way. And it's just, but it's a train wreck. In fact, that you just have to keep bringing your mind out. And a small part of me hoped that things would turn out alright in the end. And, it kind of, but it was also very, it wasn't, a perfect ending to these people's lives. And like I said, it was very tragic. And like all the classic authors I read so far, the writing is great. Just think about back then, how people wrote back then, the only time I have trouble with the writing is when the author was trying to get creative, it was getting creative with their writing. Like, I'm currently struggling with Ulysses. I want to read it, but, the author seems to have tried different styles of writing in each of his chapters. So that was the last book I read. So, I wanted to, I'd probably say The Odyssey, probably my favorites would probably be these two, The Odyssey and, Strange as the Dream are probably my two favorites out of this, although, Middlemarch comes a close second. So currently, and then so far, as of August, I had just finished Sense and Sensibility when I started at the end of July and finished it in this first week of August. A couple days ago, 2 days ago. I really liked it. I'm glad I reread it. I definitely like it a lot more now. I feel like my relationship with Jane Austen has changed a lot. I was like, oh, she's okay, but now for some reason, sometimes it just takes the right moment. And sometimes it takes a little bit of a maturity and trying different things before you and then give the author a second chance. But as you can see, this is an used copy because it has a bit of a stain. Although, now it's even more stained because I brought this with me to the pool because I'm one of those weird people who, instead of bringing, typical, rom-coms or, romances or, thrillers or something to the beach, I bring a dense classic with me to the pool or the beach. So my dad had ordered a Coke for us to share, and he accidentally spilled it. So I got a little bit on my book. I don't know if you can tell. See if you can see that little dark brownish. So, but it's not terrible, and the book was already stained here. So, And it doesn't, I'm not gonna, unless it's just not readable anymore, I'm not gonna freak out about that kind of thing. It's only, like, as long as it's not too badly ruined, then I'm good. So yeah, I'm reading that one. And then I also finished, I finished that one. And then I also recently just finished the Constantine Sonata. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I just don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know these Russian pronunciations. I would have to hear them out loud to know what, and remind myself of them, like drill into my head. I just finished that novella from this collection. And I was gonna wait before I read the other one, the last one, but I'm reading in September, because September I might participate in this readathon that Kaylee from, I don't know, she recently changed her channel name. It used to be MKM Books or something, but then she changed it because she stopped donating to that company or whatever. And not that it's not for a reason where she didn't like them or doing something dishonest or anything. I think it's just because they went, and probably because of COVID, then they just stopped. And maybe not, maybe it wasn't COVID, but I think the company just stopped, like it's no longer in business anymore. So she changed her channel name, and I don't know what it is. I don't remember what her channel name is. But she's doing a readathon where either you read 30 books in a month, or you can read 30 minutes every day. I think something like that, which that's easy. But I'm gonna try to read as many books as I can in the month of September, because I am good because of that. So I was gonna save the last novel for September, but I decided just to go ahead and read it, because I think as much as I really enjoy Tolstoy's writing so far, I just don't know if I'll ever read these again. They're good, they're engaging, and they're very interesting and thought-provoking, but they're very depressing stories, and it's like, not that my stories have to be happy all the time and fairy tale endings. I would read, fluffy romances if I wanted that all the time, or children's lit. Those are usually almost always happy stories. Have fairy tale endings and stuff. But I would read those if I wanted that all the time, and I do read those, but just not all the time. So I don't mind cynical stories and stuff, but I prefer it if it was a little bit longer than a novella. I want a longer story, a full-length novel or a tome, if it's going to be a sad story. But, well, actually, no, because I wouldn't say that. Because, that's kind of why I decided not to continue with The Goldfinch. Because people, a lot of reviews and, it was interesting to read, but a lot of people pointed out that it's very depressing, and I don't want a story that's depressing throughout the whole thing. So I'm just very particular. But I definitely think these are worth checking out and reading if you are a Tolstoy fan and have not read all of his work yet. Especially if you're kind of like me and you're taking a while to read his two biggest books, Anna Karenina and War and Peace, just to, for a little bit of a reprieve, but still getting your Tolstoy fix. Read some of these, because they're definitely not that long, and they're still good. They're just a little bit depressing and cynical. But Constantine Sonata, like I said, I apologize if I'm saying that wrong, is really interesting and just very dark and just, and kind of scary in a way, and it's not in a scary like, boo, a monster's gonna chase me or whatever, but scary as in, you're crazy. And I've gotten halfway through the last one, which is Haji Murad. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But it's actually based on real events. I looked it up, and because I didn't know which war, because I think that because I didn't know which war it took place during, or like what was going on at this time in the Russia and I think the in Russia, and so I looked it up and I read a little bit of the review of the description on Goodreads, and they said it was like during like a time when Liev had met he had witnessed who this book is about, the main guy and his experiences and what happened to him during this particular war. And so he made it fictionalized, the fictionalized version of events that he witnessed in real life. Excuse me. Hey, when I eat that, it's like you get a tickle in your throat and you're trying so hard not to cough and gross people out, but then sometimes you just need to cough. So yeah, I mean, and that probably, out of all of them, probably be my favorite. I did like The Death of Ivan Ilyich. I thought that was kind of interesting. And so far, this collection doesn't necessarily look at women in a positive light. I mean, even the first story, the other woman, the young woman, just became an adult and is not looking too smart because she rushes into a relationship, into a marriage with a much older man, and it does not go well. So I'm reading that one, and I think I might be able to. I'm taking advantage of my 2 days off and trying to get this book done, so that I can put it in the donation pile, because I'm just not gonna read it again. I liked it. I'm glad I read it. Don't get me wrong. I don't know if I'll come back. I don't know if I ever would read it again. I did start. Finally, I was like, first, I was trying to decide between The Accursed by Joyce Carol Oates, which I do want to read. I might read that one next. And, this one. But I figure, I've had this for a long time, and I've been meaning to read it. Because it's a Kate Morton. I love Kate Morton as an author. She writes such amazing books. They are a little formulaic. It's usually a story of you have 2 storylines. One that takes place in the past. And then one that takes place in the present, where somehow our present day main characters somehow connected to the past, or she's researching the past. And then you learn the story of what happened back then, and it's usually the main characters are usually women, with men, of course, as part of it. And this one so far is no exception. Like, you have a woman who is a archivist, I think. And when she was a little girl, she was told about this magical house, this mysterious house where something, and was told to it by her mother before she, and it was kind of like she told it like it was a fairy tale, a bedtime story. And her mom, her mom has passed. In her present day, anyway, her mom has passed. And she finds a sketch of that house in one of the archive boxes she receives and she has to go through. And so she asks her dad about it. And he just dismisses it. And we have gotten hints and bits and pieces so far about what happens in the past, because we don't know exactly the whole story, but this young woman is in love with this guy named Edward, and something happened at a house one day. I'm thinking she died or something, because I think she's seeing things as a ghost. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But there's something special about Kate Morton's writing style, something just capturing about it. It's like Jane Austen. It's just something about the writing. I also put those down. I think my dad just poured himself a bowl of cereal. Surprise, surprise. Notice the sarcasm in my tone of voice. Okay, I'm also looking into, I also did start, Moby Dick. As I said in my video about intimidating books that I want to read, this was one that I read years ago in the Critical Norton edition, but I didn't get very far in it, and I was like, okay, I'm bored, that's not for me. But then I watched Jennifer Brooks' vlog, where she went to a beach house to stay, and she got this book. and was reading it there and finished it on her vacation. Just the way she talked about it in her vlog, it made me think, I'm gonna give it another shot. So I bought it, and I love this cover. As I also said in the video, I had to decide between 3 options: either the flexi bound edition, which I have a few of those, a few classics in those, the Penguin Deluxe, which had a great cover and diagonal edges and French flaps. It was really pretty. And this one. So I decided a balance between a book that was more expensive, cheaper than the Penguin Deluxe, a little bit more expensive than the flexi bound, but bigger than the flexi bound. And the cover is like it has illustrations, pictures in it, like sketches and stuff. And I like how the cover looks like a painting. So, although I'm looking at it now, I feel like my edition of Great Expectations look more like a painting than this one, but I think it's the same publisher, whatever, or the same collection as that one. So I started this, I got to chapter 4, and it's actually not that hard, but I mean, I have not gotten to the boring part, the part that, I haven't gotten to the part that people say is the boring, where we get to where we talk about whales and stuff like that. But, it's actually, there are a couple chapters so far that are a little like, okay, where are we at? What's going on? But mostly it's not that hard, and the chapters are also not that long, which I really like. But it's really interesting. It's like this guy, everyone knows the first sentence, call me Ishmael, and he's this guy who decides he wants to go out at sea and go whaling, and, he has to stay at the cheapest inn, and he has to get a roommate, which is this harpooner that's, like, I want to say, like, he's Native American or something, I don't remember. And he's a little wary of the guy. Ishmael's a little wary of the guy. And, he's hearing all these stories and stuff like that, and I really haven't got that far. So I don't have a lot to say. Except for all what I just said. At least it has really cool pictures and stuff, which is really cool. I really like that. So I'm currently reading that one. And then I decided to pick up, so I may as well share the books I've bought this month. So far, the books I've added this month, 2 books I bought, because I know I already did one for July, a video where I talked about the books I bought, I think. So I bought some more books. I decided to trade in my B mass market. I think it was a B paperback. It was bigger than a regular mass market. It was kind of weird, so I just assumed it's a B paperback. I decided to trade that in and get this one, because even my mom was like, you know what, it may be more expensive, but I agree with you. She said she agreed with me on mass markets, and you may as well buy this kind of size, this regular trade paperback copy of the book, even if it's more expensive. And I've decided after talking with her that I'm not going to get mass markets anymore, or hardbacks anymore, even if, unless, like, hardbacks I might get if it's a smaller book, like, The Chosen, the Beautiful, it's not that big, I'm going to keep that one as hardback. But yeah, so I started reading this one again, and I'm thinking I'm gonna do my video. I want to do that video that I talked about a while back, like a couple years ago, where I want to do a video where I compare both adaptations to the original source material, this book. And so far, the differences are small, So they were pretty good adaptation. Obviously, they can't include everything, and they're never going to include that infamous scene that everyone hates. And sometimes that scene ruins the book for people. And I'm sure you guys will know what I'm talking about if you read the book. And sometimes you might have even heard about the scene, even if you've never read this big boy of a book. So that's the other thing. We'll never see that one on screen. Thank God. I think he was smoking some coke when he wrote this book. So there's some ideas that are like, whoa, I cannot believe you went there. Okay, so might as well show you some of the other books I bought this month. So I also bought, and I also kind of mentioned this book briefly in my Intimidating Books TBR. So this is an author, I've heard some negative things about him, and I heard he's kind of arrogant, he's a bit of a dick, and he kind of was really, even though, like, Oprah, there's this whole controversy where, with Oprah and everything in her book club, he doesn't think very highly of her book club, he just thinks it's women's fiction, and it's, you know, it's not work, it's just silly, and, like, she even picked two of his books, she picked one of his books to be in her book club, and he was an ass about it, so I'm still a little reluctant, but I've heard, like, people like Chris from Leaf by Leaf talk about this author's books, and I bought it at a used bookstore, so, you know, I didn't give him any, so it wouldn't be like I would be giving him any money. But that is The Corrections by Jonathan Frazen, and I am apprehensive, as I said in that video. This is one of the ones I'm apprehensive about, partly because of his reputation as an author, and but I bought it. I picked it up, and I'm glad that they have paperback. You know, because his other book was in hardback. They had the copy of his other book in hardback, and I'm staying away from hardbacks from now on, especially that are this length. And they have this one in paperback, so I decided to go ahead and check it out. Since I'm always looking for books that are different from my usual. I also bought this one, and as I said in that video, I don't know how to pronounce this name, but I think he tells about the history, really how the success of the Greeks, few in number, poor and discernible, managed to repulse a massive invasion by the powerful Persian army in the 5th century. Okay, so it's about the Greeks, the histories of the Greeks, and how they dealt with the invasion of the Persian army, and stuff like that. So it's gonna be an interesting read. Thought I would get it and check it out because, you know, I'm trying to get more into ancient literature and learning more about the history. Again, it's one of these things where a booktuber inspired me to check out this kind of stuff and get into this kind of literature. And then you also saw those other two. And then I also decided to go ahead and buy, again, I had a hardback version of this book, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to get rid of my hardback of this book and trade it out for a paperback. And probably going to start over and reread it. And that is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Now, I have not, again, this is a situation where I have not read her other famous series. I do have it, but it's in the donation pile, although I might have already got rid of it. And if I'm interested, I could always rebuy it, you know. But this is about two different groups of communities that have, like, one group that worships dragons and one group who fears them. But they all fear this one particular dragon that seems to be coming back, that is prophesied to return. So you have multiple perspectives. You have one girl who's training to be a dragon rider, and you have this alchemist who has been exiled. You have this girl who, from the opposite, the other land, is gone undercover as a servant to the queen, who's being pressured to get married because the people believe that her having an heir is what protects them from this evil dragon that both sides are afraid of. And there's a couple other other character perspective as well. It's just, I remember really being interested. It's a long book. It's dense. So I was, you know, I wanted to keep going with it, but it's long. So I haven't picked it up for a while. like probably a year or two since I last picked it up. So I'm gonna reread it, and I thought it would be good to start reading it during the summer because I intended to read during the summer. For some reason, I was thinking it's a perfect summer read because, like, one of the I picture these places as being giant island cities. So I just felt like it was the watery setting fits. The summer fits because, as I've said before, I'm kind of going like a sort of half-hearted theme of water books that have to do with like the ocean and stuff like that, because I think of that's perfect for the summer. Hence why I read The Odyssey and Treasure Island, and then I wanted to include 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but I decided to wait. I decided not to wait and just read it when I got it in April. But yeah, so, and that's also, I think that's part of why I was thinking about Moby Dick as well, because it's about this whale trying to track down this whale and get revenge on this whale. And so yeah, I think that's all the books I bought recently that I haven't showed you guys. I can't remember what I bought with it because lately I've been buying 2 books. I think it was a classic I bought with it. It might have been my copy of Jane Eyre, because I got a new copy of Jane Eyre. Let me real quick get that one and show you. Oh, here it is. Okay, so, the one I actually bought with it, I think, was Villette by Charlotte Bronte. And then I think I already showed you that I got Agnes Grey in my haul from Thrift Books. I bought that one. That's my first Anne book, so I think I'm gonna read that maybe in September. But I had a mass market copy of this because it's what they had at the roast office. So I decided to get this, and this one is still pretty cheap. I mean, it's probably close to the same price as the mass market, because these, this is the Arcturus editions. The covers are like cartoony, and it's not necessarily as fancy as some of my other versions of classics, like some of the Penguin versions, like the Penguin Deluxe version of Moby Dick was pretty fancy. It had deckled edges, like I said, and French flaps. Again, damn THs and Fs. French flaps. So it was pretty nice. But like I said, I decided to get that other one. I shouldn't say settled, because I did want that one. Settling, I feel like, has a negative connotation. So yeah, these are not as fancy, but they're still, good, and the ink is still great, and it's a good size. It's bigger than the mass markets, hence why I bought it. The only thing I'm nervous about one of the things I'm nervous about is a lot of people say they don't love it as much, and also there's a lot of French in this book. At least in the adaptations of Jane Eyre, they translate the French. And I never took French, so I don't know French. And my sister has not taken it in years. So the one time I asked her to translate something from, she actually got it wrong. And so I was like, yeah, I don't think I can rely on her to translate things for me. So I would probably have to look it up. And I think I do have a translator on my iPhone. I just don't know how to use it yet. But yeah, it's, again, just like Jane Eyre. I think it's about a governess. And she goes between 2 different families. And then one of the families I think has a really bratty kids that are very disrespectful to her, and so so this one's a little more tragic, I think, or a little sad compared to Jane Eyre. Which, speaking of Jane Eyre, I don't know if I showed you this, but this is another one I bought. I just fell in love with this cover. And this one also has the French flaps and deckled edges. But I just fell in love with this because first, it reminds me so much of Tim Burton's work. Like his style, of his art style, you know, in films, especially when he does the motion capture, just these, so I just wanted to, as soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, I want to buy that, but I already have a copy of Jane Eyre, so I was like, I decided, and it was in this edition, actually, I don't know if you guys remember, it was in that edition, so I decided, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna just buy this edition and then, put that one in the donation pile. Although what I decided to do is, I also have a pile of books that are going to Terry someday. I started that pile. So, I'm sending, that copy I have, it's still a nice copy. It's actually a better copy than the copy of It I gave her, which I feel really bad, but I gave her, one that was kind of has a little bit of water stain on it, and the last few pages are, kind of a little messed up, but it's still readable, it's still in decent condition, in my defense. So I gave her, I have thought about being like, hey, do you want a better copy of It than the one I gave you? So, I don't know, I might do that at some point. But I love this. And I think they have a lot of other books in this. I don't know which ones off the top of my head, but there's a few in this edition, but it has the French flaps, and then it has the deckled edges, which I like. I know a lot of people don't like deckled edges, but I really love them because they make the book look so old-fashioned, and I really like when a book looks older, but not, literally, it looks retro, but it's not, actually retro. So yeah, I also have that one too. I don't know if I showed you guys that one or not. And I don't know, I think there's probably one more, but I don't remember, that I haven't shown you yet. I don't remember what it is, but anyway, I'm going to stop, because this video is getting a little too long. So that is my wrap up for July, and another little book haul of books I bought in July, and going into August. So, as always, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe. If you haven't already, click the bell notification if you want to be notified when I post new videos. And I hope you are staying safe and healthy and enjoying your reading. Alright, bye!